Welcome back to Pints and Punditry, and we're going to recap some of the top storylines from this past week all across European soccer. We're going to start in the Premier League, where the biggest storyline for me was the play of Arsenal and the way they have really established that they are for real this year. Now, if you watched our preseason preview video, they were one of my picks to potentially jump into the race, and right now they are the race. They are proving so far to be a better competitor for the top spot than Liverpool. Now, it's obviously very early, but Arsenal looked really good for the second week in a row. Gabriel Jesus looks like he is the transfer of the summer so far, making the biggest impact on the offense at Arsenal. He's really just been outstanding. Really makes you wonder why he couldn't be that guy for Manchester City. Clearly, he can play as the number 9. He can be the tip of the spear. Maybe he just didn't fit in Pep's system. I don't know. Pep loved him, and he produced when he got to play, but he just never really got that chance. And Mikel Arteta knew him as well as anybody from his time working at City. So this move had a good chance of working out, but even to this point, I'm not sure anybody could have hoped it was going to be quite this good so far. So Arsenal looks like they are for real, and that's good for the Premier League. I'm sure Liverpool's going to be there in the end. Man City looks great so far. It's good for the league to have another team that's going to be this competitive and challenge those top two. And it looks like, at least in the early running, that Arsenal is one of those clubs. So good for Arsenal, and it's great to see so far. But that has been one of the top storylines for me. At the other end of the table, however, Manchester United, oh my gosh, it's actually painful to watch. And, it's been beat to death. What's going on with them? Is it a lack of talent under Erik ten Hag? Did they not give him what he needed? Is it dressing room stuff? Is it Cristiano Ronaldo? Is it Harry Maguire's captaincy? Is it any of these other things? Yes, all of the above. It's probably some of all those things, but you could not have scripted a worse start for Manchester United, and if you had written that script, nobody would buy it. It's been that bad and that unrealistic. 2 straight losses to teams that they just should not lose to, but not just that, really ugly losses. Just lack of effort, lack of talent, lack of communication, infighting. I mean, everything that could go wrong has gone wrong so far for Manchester United, and it's really just, about as ugly as it can get. I can't imagine this lasts. They are not obviously going to finish bottom of the table. They're probably not even going to be in the relegation discussion when it's all said and done, although stranger things have happened. But I take no joy from it. Even as a City supporter, I take no joy in this. The Premier League is not better when one of its best clubs is a complete dumpster fire. Leagues are better when their top clubs are at their best. And, if you've watched my videos and my channel, you've seen me talk about Manchester United no longer being a big club. That, unfortunately, is true. And everyone will benefit if they can get this turned around and get that changed. Next up, over to La Liga. We had an interesting start to the season with Barcelona and Real Madrid. And, I've been on Barcelona a lot, and I'm not sorry for that. I don't like bad business, and they are bad business right now. But I've said, despite the way they've gone about it, this is a good club. It's a talented club. And they'll be good again. They did not look great early on. They'll be okay, though. This is not something that I have long-term concerns about. I tweeted this out, and if you don't follow me already on Twitter, go ahead and follow at TotalFIFACM. But they looked like an all-star team of guys who met in the tunnel before the game or had one practice together. And the reason is they kind of are. They got a lot of new faces. They have not gelled yet, and it's going to take time. Listen, at the end of the day, Barcelona is going to be up there in the top 1, 2, maybe 3 spots in La Liga, so I'm not concerned about that. But it wasn't smooth, and it wasn't pretty, and they stumbled out of the blocks. And that'll be interesting to watch because they're going to have more movement. They are trying to transfer more players. They're trying to get rid of Frankie de Jong. They want to bring in Bernardo Silva. They still haven't registered everybody. So there's more movement to come, and it could take a while. It could take a month or two into the season for Barcelona to gel and to get sort of on the same page. And then we've got a World Cup break in the middle of the season. And that might actually benefit them because they could be a team that comes back after the World Cup and looks like a totally different squad if they can just stay afloat before that, and I'm sure they will. Their fellow La Liga rivals, Real Madrid, also didn't look that good, and they've got some new players too, but they've got more than enough talent to overcome it, and they got their points, but it wasn't pretty. And there's a few comments after the game about the weight of the jersey. That's a real thing. And for players who are thinking about going to some of these bigger clubs, be careful what you wish for sometimes. It's not always everything it's cracked up to be. There is pressure that comes with that. There are expectations. And, the old saying, heavy is the head that wears the crown. Well, heavy is the shoulders. Heavy are the shoulders that wear the Real Madrid jersey. And I think that's what some of them are realizing. So I buy into that statement. And again, these are not things that are going to be of concern. At the end of the season, you're going to be looking at Real Madrid 1, Barcelona 2 is my guess. Maybe Atletico up there, but you're going to see these two teams near the top of La Liga. All we can hope for is that there is other challengers like the Premier League where there's going to be a few more teams involved, but I'm not worried about either of these teams. But they both sort of stumbled on their faces coming out of the blocks, and Real Madrid got their points. Barcelona, not as much, but they're going to be just fine. And long term, I'm not too concerned about either of these things. Real Madrid's challenge was against a promoted team, and that's something we're seeing in the Premier League as well. And I did a short about this the other day, but the promoted teams are doing more than holding their own. They're winning games. They're showing fight. Now, again, we're 2 games in, right? So this is somewhat reactionary, and we're jumping ahead of ourselves a little bit. But it used to be, and even as recently as last year, when a team played Norwich, automatic 3 points, right? They didn't stand a chance. And that's been the case year after year, is there's always at least 1, if not 2 or 3 promoted teams that really just aren't putting up a fight, and there's always in the league a few just automatic 3-point weekends, right? You just know you're getting your 3 points. Well, there may be some of those in the Premier League this year, but it doesn't look like it's going to come from your 3 promoted teams in Bournemouth, Nottingham Forest, and Fulham. 2 of them already have wins. Fulham has 2 draws. They're here to play. They invested some money. We talked about that in the preseason video. Nottingham Forest went out and gave it their best and got a lot of talent. And that home crowd was rocking. Now, can that intensity stay up all season? Probably not. When you're playing your first home Premier League match in a generation, that's going to be an intimidating place for any club to come into and play on the road. But they're still going to be intense all season, especially if they win a few games and start to show some life and are now playing for something and are playing to stay in the league. So I think it's really interesting to see these promoted teams come out of the gates strong. Some really good teams, Liverpool, Man United, come out of the gates flat, and all of a sudden the Premier League table is sort of on its head. And I love that. Even if it's only 2 games in, I don't care. I love that. It's going to make it interesting, and I think this is one of the deepest Premier League seasons we've seen in a long time. And you can't say that for every league. Real Madrid and Barcelona got off to slow starts against Real Madrid was playing a recently promoted team, but you can't say that about every league. And one example is Ligue 1 in France, where PSG, and this is the last topic I want to talk about, just took a recently promoted opponent to the cleaners. And I don't really want to talk about that because it was boring and they kicked some ass, and that's what you expect to do. But you had some controversy surrounding Kylian Mbappe, and you probably saw the clip on Twitter making the rounds of him just giving up on a play mid-game. Well, you know what? This is what happens when you have a combination of a couple things. You got a young guy who's also already achieved a lot. You've given him the keys to the Ferrari, right? They're letting him make personnel decisions. He knows he owns the club at this point. He owns management. He owns the coaching staff. And so there's very little they can do to get him to play hard if he doesn't want to. Now, he plays hard when it matters. And the other variable here is the crappy opponents that they play in half of that league. And so you've got games when he can go 75% for most of the game, lay on 4 or 5 sprints when there's a goal in front of him, and barely break a sweat. And so, yeah, you're going to see some petulance there. And is it right? No. But it's the situation that PSG has created, and it's one that they tolerate because of who Kylian Mbappe is. And it's not what I like to watch, and it's not something I'd want to be a supporter of, but I get it. And it's the situation they've created for themselves. The thing that would concern me if I'm a PSG fan is you can't always just flip the switch and turn it on when the time comes. And perhaps this has been the problem for PSG in the Champions League at times. You go play all these Ligue 1 games, and 75% of them aren't competitive, and Kylian Mbappe is going through the motions and scoring 20, 30 goals, and then they go through the group stage in the Champions League, and it's not a lot tougher, and they're going to get out of that. And then they start playing in quarterfinals and semifinals, and you want to turn on that intensity, and you go to start the engine, and it stalls out a little bit, and it's not there. And the intensity is not just a switch you can flip. And say what you will about Manchester City and Pep and all the money that they have, but they have an intensity every game. And it's not just them. Same thing with Liverpool. Same thing with really well-coached teams. There is a constant intensity. Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Ajax. There's really good teams have an intensity that is there every game no matter the opponent. And bad teams go through the motions and try to flip the switch. And I'll bet you don't see Kylian Mbappe do this in the World Cup for France. So it's under his control. And so, yeah, he doesn't need to be the best player in the world to score 30 goals in domestic play this year because Ligue 1's not that good. And the bottom half of it is a joke. And PSG's going to kick ass most weekends. But I'm not sold they can flip the switch when they need to. So that'll be interesting to watch to see if they continue to have struggles in the Champions League down the road, if this is going to be the mentality on a week-in, week-out basis. So those were some of the things I watched for this weekend that I wanted to see, or that I took away from. Really interesting week of football. Maybe not the best week. I didn't even touch on the Tottenham-Chelsea game and the scuffle at the end because that's been beat to death, and it's dumb. Tuchel and Conte, it's dumb. It's entertaining, but it's dumb. But a really interesting week of football, and you can start to see some of these leagues and some of these tables beginning to take shape, even though it's only 2 matches in a lot of cases. So great football, a lot of fun, and I cannot wait for next week, and cannot wait to get into some midweek games. If you don't follow us on Twitter, follow us at TotalFIFACM. Hit that subscribe button for me, hit the like button for me, and I hope you're enjoying the content here at Pints and Punditry. This is Total FIFA Career Mode.